The Galactic Council had watched Earth for 3,000 cycles. They had cameras hidden in asteroids. They had sensors buried in the ocean floors. They had observers who studied every war, every peace treaty, and every small step humanity took toward the stars. And after all that watching, they had decided one simple thing. Humans were not a threat, Ambassador. Velo of the North Federation said it best during a council meeting. He stood before the great assembly of alien species and laughed at the blue planet on the display screen. "Look at them," he said, his gray face twisted with amusement. "They fight each other over lines drawn in dirt. They kill their own kind over the color of their skin. They poison their own air and water. Give them another 100 years, and they will destroy themselves." "We do not need to do anything," the council agreed. Humanity was classified as a Class 7 primitive species. Dangerous to themselves, but harmless to everyone else. The galaxy had nothing to fear from the small creatures on the third planet from an average star. This was the Council's first mistake. Their second mistake was allowing the Keth Dominion to expand into human space. The Keth were an insectoid species, with hard shells and cold hearts. They had conquered 63 worlds in the past millennium. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They simply took what they wanted and killed anyone who tried to stop them. The Council tolerated them because they were useful. The Keth kept the outer regions quiet. They never challenged Council authority. When the Keth requested permission to harvest resources from the edge of human territory, Ambassador Velo approved it without a second thought. "The humans have a small colony there," said Representative Thal of the Orin Collective. 40,000 settlers. "What happens to them?" Velo waved his hand dismissively. "The Keth will relocate them. Or not, it does not matter. Humans breed quickly. They will make more." Colony Area 6 was a peaceful place. It sat on a green moon orbiting a gas giant, and its people were farmers and scientists. They had left Earth to build a better life among the stars. They had named their streets after flowers and their children after hopes. The Keth arrived on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Taiho was aboard the Earth fleet carrier Defiance. When the distress signal came through, he was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. He had served in 3 wars on Earth before joining the fleet, and he had seen terrible things. But nothing prepared him for what he heard in that signal. Screaming, fire, the sound of buildings collapsing, and then a child's voice, crying for her mother. Before the transmission cut to static, Commander Yuna stood beside him. She was younger than Taiho, but her eyes were just as hard. She had grown up in the slums of Busan, fighting for every meal. The stars had given her a chance at something better. Now those stars felt very dark. "How many ships do we have in range?" Taiho asked quietly. 12, Yuna replied. "The Keth have over 100? And the colony?" Yuna looked at the sensor data. Her voice did not shake, but her hands did. "Gone, sir. Thermal readings show. Everything is burning. There are no life signs." Taiho closed his eyes. 40,000 people. Farmers, scientists, children, gone in a single morning, because some alien bureaucrat decided they did not matter. He opened his eyes and something had changed in them. Something cold and ancient, buried deep in human genes since the first ancestor picked up a rock to defend their family. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," he said. "Priority Alpha." "Sir, that channel is only 4. I know what it is for." Taiho turned to face Yuna directly. "We are going to need it." On Earth, the news of Colony Area 6 spread within hours. The governments tried to control the information, but they failed. People saw the images. They heard the recordings. They watched their own kind burn, while aliens harvested their homes for metal and fuel. Something broke that day. Or perhaps something finally healed. Nations that had been enemies for centuries held emergency meetings. Presidents and prime ministers who had never agreed on anything found themselves saying the same words, "This cannot stand." General Daesung was called out of retirement. He was 73 years old, a veteran of wars that most people had forgotten. He walked into the United Nations building with a cane in one hand and a folder in the other. I assume you want me to build a defense plan, he said to the assembled leaders. The president of the European Federation nodded. We need to protect our remaining colonies. The Keth could attack again at any moment. Sung dropped the folder on the table. Papers scattered everywhere, each one showing military formations, ship designs, and attack routes. No, he said simply. No. The room erupted in confused voices. Daesung held up one hand, and the room fell silent. There was something in his eyes that demanded attention. Something that reminded everyone in that room why they had feared him on the battlefield. Defense is what they expect, he explained slowly. They think we will hide behind our walls and wait for death. They think we will scatter and panic. They think we are prey. He pointed at the largest diagram on the table, a map of Keth space, with a single red line cutting straight through it. We do not defend. We attack. We take the war to their doorstep. We make them fear the darkness between stars. For 3 days, the world debated. Politicians argued about resources and risks. Military advisors warned about the power of the Keth fleet. Diplomats suggested trying to negotiate with the council. But then the Keth released a message. It was meant as a warning to other human colonies. It showed what they had done to Aria 6 in detail. Every death, every fire, every moment of suffering, recorded and broadcast like entertainment. The debate ended that night, the United Earth. Defense directive was signed by every nation on the planet. Old enemies shook hands. Ancient grudges were set aside. Factories that built cars began building warships. Scientists who had competed for funding began sharing research. Soldiers from 100 different flags put on the same uniform. Humanity had never truly united before. They had always found reasons to fight each other, but now they had something more powerful than any internal conflict. A common enemy. The council received reports of the mobilization. They watched the factories light up across Earth. They tracked the new ships rising from the surface. And they did nothing. Let them come, Ambassador Velo announced to the council chamber. The Keith have 10,000 warships. The humans have fewer than 200. This will not be a war. It will be an extermination. The council voted to observe, but not intervene. They would watch humanity die. Then they would move on to more important matters. They did not understand what they were watching. They saw ships and weapons and soldiers. But they did not see the fire that burned in human hearts. They did not understand what it meant when a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself suddenly stopped. They did not know that. They were watching the galaxy change forever. General Daesung stood in a war room buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea. The walls were made of solid rock, and the ceiling was thick enough to survive a nuclear strike. Holographic displays floated in the air around him, showing the positions of Keth fleets across 3 star systems. Red dots filled the screens like a disease spreading through space. His commanders sat around a long table, their faces lit by the blue glow of the displays. There were men and women from every corner of Earth, soldiers who had once aimed weapons at each other and wearing the same gray uniform. Old hatreds meant nothing here. Only survival mattered. The Keth have positioned their main fleet at the Vera system, Daesung explained, pointing at a cluster of red dots. They expect us to meet them there in open battle. They have 10,000 warships. We have 153. A murmur went through the room. The numbers were impossible. Even with every ship Earth could build, they would be outnumbered 60 to 1. Sir, said one commander, a woman from Brazil named Silva, with respect, those odds are suicide. Daesung smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a wolf seeing a fat deer in a clearing. You are thinking like they want you to think, he said. You are thinking about fleet battles. Ship against ship, line against line. That is their game. That is how the Keth have always won. He pressed a button, and the display changed. The red dots remained, but now thin blue lines appeared throughout Keth space supply routes. Communication relays, fuel depots, repair stations. The blue lines connected everything like blood vessels in a body. Do not play their game, Daesung continued. We play ours. We have spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other. We have invented every form of war that exists. Guerrilla warfare, sabotage, terrorism, assassination, psychological operations. He tapped the display. The Keith have never faced an enemy like us. They conquer through overwhelming force. They have never fought someone who refuses to stand and fight. Captain Hannah received her orders 3 days later. She commanded the Iron Lotus, a stealth frigate designed for one purpose: to kill without being seen. Her crew of 60 had all volunteered. Knowing that their mission had a survival rate of less than 30%, they did not care. Hannah gathered her crew in the mess hall before departure. They were young, most of them. Engineers and pilots and soldiers who had been born on Earth but had chosen to die among the stars. She looked at their faces and saw no fear, only anger. Keth think they know what humans are, she told them. They think we are soft. They think we are weak. They think we will break. She paused. They are wrong. She pulled up a display showing their first target, a Keth supply convoy, carrying fuel and ammunition to the front lines. We are going to teach them what humans really are. We are going to become their nightmares. We are going to make them afraid of every shadow, every asteroid, every quiet moment in the dark. And when they finally understand what they have awakened, it will be too late. The Iron Lotus launched at midnight Earth time. The first Keth convoy vanished without sending a single distress signal. One moment, 5 transport ships were traveling through normal space. The next moment, they were debris. The Keth command received no warning, no explanation. The ships were simply gone. Then another convoy disappeared. Then another. The Keth began sending escorts with their supply ships. Heavy cruisers with powerful weapons and thick armor. It did not help. The human frigates attacked from angles the Keth never expected. They hid in asteroid fields and waited for days. They disguised themselves as debris and drifted close before striking. They used tactics that the galaxy had not seen in millennia. Tactics that the civilized species had abandoned as barbaric. Captain Hannah became famous, though no Keth ever saw her face. They called her the Ghost of the Black. Stories spread through the Keth fleet about a demon that hunted their ships. A creature that could not be killed because it was already dead. Soldiers refused to serve on supply convoys. Officers demanded transfers away from the supply routes. On the council observation deck, Ambassador Velo watched the reports with growing unease. The holographic display showed Keth losses mounting by the day. Not from battles, from disappearances. Ships simply stopped reporting and were never seen again. This is unusual, said Representative Thal, studying the data. The humans are not engaging in direct combat. They are targeting infrastructure. It is cowardice, Velo snapped. They hide in the shadows because they cannot face our allies in open war. Perhaps, said Observer Mira of the Vel Ascendancy. She was the oldest being in the chamber. A creature of crystalline light who had watched civilizations rise and fall for longer than most species had existed. Or perhaps they understand something that the Keith do not. And what is that? Mira's ancient eyes studied the human tactics on the display. That war is not about glory. It is about winning. Meanwhile, the main human fleet under Admiral Taiho was not idle. While the stealth frigates hunted supply convoys, Taiho prepared his ships for something bigger. Something that would shock the Galaxy Commander Yuna found him in his quarters one night, staring at old photographs. Pictures of a colony. Pictures of children playing in green fields under an alien sky. Aria 6? She asked quietly. Taiho nodded. My niece lived there, Minji. She was 8 years old. He touched the photograph gently. She wanted to be a pilot. She used to send me messages asking about the stars. Yuna said nothing. There was nothing to say. The council thinks we are animals, Taiho continued, his voice hard. They think we fight because we cannot control ourselves. They do not understand that we fight because we must. Because some things are worth fighting for. Because some crimes cannot go unanswered. He stood and faced Yuna directly. In 3 days, we engaged the Keth main fleet at Sigma Reach. They outnumber us 15-1. The council expects us to die. A cold smile crossed his face. They are going to be disappointed. Yuna nodded. The crews are ready, sir? They know what is at stake. Do they know the odds? Yes, they volunteered anyway. Yuna hesitated for a moment, then added, some of them have started painting something on their ships. A phrase? What phrase? For Arya. Gond. Taiho was silent for a long moment. Then he picked up his uniform jacket and put it on. Good, he said quietly. Make sure the Keth see it before they die. 3 days later, 147 human warships jumped into the Sigma Reach system. Waiting for them were over 2,000 Keth warships, the largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled. The Council opened a live observation channel. They expected to watch the end of humanity's brief rebellion. They were about to learn how wrong they were about everything. The Sigma Reach system had 3 suns and 17 planets. It was beautiful in a cold, distant way, a place where light danced between stars and painted the darkness in shades of gold and red. For millions of years, it had been empty and peaceful. That peace ended when the human fleet arrived. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at the enemy formation on his display. 2017 Keth warships, arranged in perfect lines, their weapons armed and ready. They looked like a wall of death stretching across the void. His own fleet of 147 ships seemed tiny in comparison, like insects facing giants. Sir, said the communications officer, the Keth commander is hailing us. Put him through. The main screen flickered, and a Keth appeared. He was larger than most of his kind, with a shell that gleamed like polished metal. His compound eyes reflected dozens of images of Taiho's face. Human Commander, the Keth said, his voice clicking and harsh. I am Supreme Commander Velik of the Keth Dominion. You have exactly 1 chance to surrender. Deactivate your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be taken as slaves. Your ships will be dismantled. This is your only option. Taiho said nothing for a long moment. Then he smiled. Let me tell you something about humans, he said quietly. We have a saying on Earth. Wolves do not negotiate with sheep. You killed 40,000 of our people. You've burned our colony. You took our children. His smile disappeared. There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. And when this battle is over, every Keth in this system will be dead or running. He cut the transmission. Commander Yuna looked at him with something like surprise. Sir, you know what this means? They will not accept surrender from us either, I know. Taiho turned to his tactical display. All ships, engage formation, Hammer 7. Activate kinetic drivers. Prepare for full assault. The human fleet began to move. In the council observation chamber, Ambassador Velo laughed at the display. Kinetic drivers? Mass weapons? The humans are truly primitive. Such weapons were obsolete before my species achieved spaceflight. Psst. Observer Mira said nothing. She was watching the human formation with ancient, careful eyes. The Keth fleet opened fire first. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled the void between the fleets, turning space into a storm of light and heat. The alien weapons were elegant and advanced, the product of a civilization that had been conquering worlds for millennia. They struck the human ships, and the human ships kept coming. What? Velo leaned forward, his gray face suddenly pale. Their shields should have collapsed. They do not have shields, Myra said quietly. They have armor. Physical armor. Meters of steel and composite materials. That is impossible. No species uses physical armor anymore. This species does. The human fleet reached optimal range, and then they fired. The kinetic drivers were simple weapons. They used electromagnetic fields to accelerate solid projectiles to incredible speeds. There was no elegant technology, no advanced science, just tungsten rods the size of buildings. Moving at a fraction of the speed of light, the first volley struck the Keth fleet like the hammer of an angry god. Keth shields were designed to stop energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. They could not stop solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rods punched through shields, through armor, through everything. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were torn apart like paper in a hurricane. 60 Keth warships died in the first 30 seconds. Supreme. Commander Velik stared at his tactical display in disbelief. This was not possible. The humans were primitives. They were supposed to break and run. They were supposed to be easy prey. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead human vessels, he screamed. Destroy them. The Keth fleet adjusted their attack. They focused their weapons on the human flagship, the Defiance. Energy beams and plasma bolts hammered the ship from every direction. Armor plating melted and tore away. Internal systems began to fail. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. A damage control officer shouted, "We are losing atmosphere." "Seal those sections," Tai-Ho ordered calmly. "Keep firing. We have lost 30% of our weapons. Then use the other 70%. The battle became chaos. Human ships and Keth ships tangled together in a dance of death. There were no clean formations, no elegant maneuvers. Just two fleets trying to destroy each other at close range. Lieutenant Junho commanded the destroyer Brave Spirit. His ship had been hit 17 times. Half his crew was dead. His engines were failing, and his weapons were nearly empty. He had one torpedo left. The Keth carrier in front of him was 10 times his size. It was launching fighters that were cutting through the human fleet like knives. Every second it survived, more humans died. Jeho looked at his remaining crew. They were wounded, exhausted, and afraid. And yet, they looked back at him with steady eyes. "For Arya," he said softly. "For Arya," they replied. The Brave Spirit accelerated toward the carrier. The Keth tried to stop it with defensive fire, but the destroyer was already too close. Gunho aimed for the engine core, the weakest point on any ship. The impact was visible from across the system. Pilot Suman was 23 years old. She had grown up in a small town in Gangwon province, dreaming of flying among the stars. Now she flew a fighter that was held together by willpower and wire. Her weapons had failed after her third kill. Her shields were gone. Her navigation system was dead, but she could still fly. The Keth command ship was coordinating the enemy fleet. As long as it survived, the Keth would keep fighting. Suman had watched the ship destroy 4 human destroyers in the past 10 minutes. She aimed her broken fighter at the command. Bridgen pushed her engines to maximum. Her last thought was of her mother's. Garden in the spring, Sergeant Wubin was not a pilot. He was a marina soldier, trained to fight on the ground. When his ship was boarded by Keth warriors, he did not run. He gathered 7 soldiers and held a corridor for 11 minutes. The Keth sent 200 warriors to take that corridor. None of them succeeded. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Wubin's body at the center of a circle of dead. Kethio was still holding his weapon. The Battle of Sigma Reach lasted for hours. When it ended, the Keth had lost 847 ships. The human fleet had lost 62. The remaining Keth forces retreated, leaving their dead behind. In the council chamber, there was only silence. Representatives who had ruled galaxies for millennia stared at their displays with expressions of shock and horror. "How?" whispered Representative Thal. "How is this possible?" Velo had no answer. He watched as human rescue ships moved through the debris, pulling survivors from destroyed vessels. They were rescuing Keth wounded as well as their own. "They are saving the enemy," he said, his voice hollow with confusion. "After everything that happened, they are saving the enemy." Observer Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, that is what makes them terrifying. They can be absolutely ruthless in war and merciful in victory. They contain both within the same hearts." She looked at the other representatives with ancient, knowing eyes. "The galaxy has made a terrible mistake. And now, we must face the consequences." The Keth homeworld was called Kether Prime, and it was beautiful in a strange way. The planet was covered in vast hive cities that rose like mountains toward the orange sky. 12 billion Keth lived there, going about their daily lives, secure in the knowledge that their empire was unbeatable. They had not seen war in 600 years. Their orbital defense platforms, massive stations bristling with weapons, had never fired at an actual enemy. They were symbols of power, not instruments of war. that changed on a cold morning when the human fleet emerged from hyperspace. "Admiral," Taiho stood on the bridge of a new flagship. The Defiance had been too damaged to repair, so he now commanded the vengeance, a name chosen by the crew without his input. He had not objected. The fleet had grown since Sigma Reach. 85 ships had survived the battle. Earth had sent reinforcements. Now, 230 human warships hung in the darkness above the Keth homeworld, their weapons armed and ready. "Sir," said Commander Yuna, studying the sensor data, "the Keth have 47 orbital defense platforms and approximately 300 warships in defensive positions. They are hailing us. Put them through." The screen flickered, and a new Keth appeared. This one wore ceremonial robes instead of military armor. His compound eyes were wide with what might have been fear. "I am Chancellor Morik of the Keth Dominion," he said, his voice clicking nervously. "You cannot do this. The Galactic Council forbids attacks on homeworlds. There are rules. There are treaties. Civilized species do not. You killed 40,000 of our people," Taiho interrupted, his voice flat and cold. "Children, families, farmers, scientists. You burned them alive and broadcast the footage as a warning." He leaned forward slightly. "Did you follow the rules then?" The Chancellor's mandibles clicked rapidly. "That was a military operation. Those were colonial assets. It is not the same as attacking a homeworld. There are 12 billion civilians on this planet, and there were 40,000 on Aria 6. You cannot compare." "I am not here to negotiate," Taiho said, cutting him off again. "I am here to give you a choice. You can surrender unconditionally right now, or you can watch as we dismantle everything you have built. Your military, your government, your ability to ever threaten another species again." He paused. "We will not target civilians. We are not you. But everything else is fair game." The Chancellor's face twisted with rage. "You are barbarians. You are primitives. The Council will never allow this." "The Council is watching," Taiho replied calmly. "They have been watching since the beginning, and they have done nothing." He turned to look at his tactical display. "Perhaps they are learning something about the price of doing nothing." The transmission ended. In the Galactic Council chamber, chaos erupted. Ambassador Velo was screaming at the display, demanding that someone intervene. Representative Thal was trying to call emergency votes. A dozen other representatives were shouting over each other, their voices blending into meaningless noise. Observer Mira sat quietly in her place. "Watching the human fleet with ancient eyes? We must stop them," Velo shouted. "This is a violation of every law we have created. They cannot attack a homeworld." "They cannot with what forces?" Mira asked, her crystalline voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. "What?" Velo turned to face her. "You asked us to stop them," Myra said calmly. "I am asking with what forces." The Keth were the third most powerful military in known space. The humans defeated them in 4 months. She looked around the chamber slowly. "The North have a fleet of 800 ships. The Orin have 500. My people gave up war 2 million years ago and have no military at all." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "The humans have just proven that they can destroy a superior military force using weapons we considered obsolete. They have shown tactics and strategies that no species in this galaxy has used in millennia. And now they are above a planet of 12 billion people, waiting to see what happens next." Her ancient eyes met Velo's. "So I ask again, with what forces do you propose we stop them?" No one answered, above Kether Prime. The human fleet began its work. The first targets were the orbital defense platforms. Human ships attacked from multiple angles, using their kinetic weapons to tear through shields and armor. The Keth defenders fought back desperately, but they had never trained for actual combat. Their weapons were meant to intimidate, not to kill. 40-7 platforms fell in 6 hours. The second targets were military installations on the surface. Human bombers descended through the atmosphere, releasing precision strikes on barracks, weapons factories, and command centers. They did not touch civilian areas. They did not attack homes or schools or hospitals. General Daesung had been very clear about that. "We are not monsters," he had told the fleet before the attack. We fight soldiers, not children. We destroy weapons, not families. If we become like them, then we have already lost. The Keth military tried to stop the attacks. Fighters rose from planetary bases to intercept the bombers. Missiles streaked through the sky. Anti-aircraft weapons filled the air with fire. Captain Hannah led the defense suppression mission. Her Iron Lotus had survived the war so far, though she had lost half her crew along the way. Now she flew through the chaos of atmospheric combat, destroying Keth defenses so the bombers could complete their work. Go Squadron, target the northern batteries, she ordered. Eagle Squadron, cover the bombers on approach. Copy that, Ghost Leader. The battle raged for 3 days. Human ships took damage. Pilots died. Marines fell in ground operations that became necessary when Keth's ground forces refused to surrender, but slowly, inevitably, the Keth military crumbled. On the 4th day, Chancellor Morik sent a transmission. We surrender, he said. His voice was broken. His ceremonial robes were torn. Behind him, his capital city was dark. The power grid had been destroyed 2 days ago. Unconditionally. Completely. Just stop. Admiral Taiho looked at the defeated Chancellor for a long moment. He thought about Colony Aria 6. He thought about Minji, his niece, who had wanted to be a pilot. He thought about the 40,000 people who had died because the galaxy had decided they did not matter. Part of him wanted to keep going. Part of him wanted to reduce Kether Prime to ash and let the galaxy see what happened to those who attacked humanity. But that part was not the whole of him. Surrender accepted, he said finally. Ground your remaining ships. Disarm your orbital weapons. Prepare for occupation forces. He paused. And Chancellor, the next time your people think about attacking another species, remember this day. Remember what humans can do when they choose to make war, and pray that you never see it again. The transmission ended. In the council chamber, silence reigned. The representatives stared at the image of the Keth homeworld, conquered in less than a week by a species they had dismissed as primitive and irrelevant. Ambassador Velo sat in his chair, unable to speak. His carefully constructed view of the galaxy had been shattered completely. Observer Mira rose slowly from her seat. Hush, the humans have won, she said quietly. And now we must decide what happens next. Because they will be coming for their seat at this table. And after what they have shown us, I do not think we can refuse them. She looked around at the assembled representatives. The age of treating humanity as children is over. They are awake now. And the galaxy will never be the same. 1 year after the war ended, a human ship docked at the Galactic Council station for the first time. It was not a warship that would have been too aggressive. Instead, it was a diplomatic vessel, painted white and carrying no weapons visible on its hull. But everyone who watched it arrive knew what humans were capable of. The white paint meant nothing. Ambassador Jisoo stepped off the ship with a small delegation behind her. She was not tall. She was not old. She did not look like someone who could change the fate of galaxies. She wore a simple dark suit and walked with quiet confidence through the massive station corridors. Every alien she passed stopped to stare. Jisoo had grown up in Seoul, the daughter of a teacher and a factory worker. She had studied languages as a child, then politics as a young woman, and finally, diplomacy after the war began. When Earth needed someone to represent humanity before the Council, they had chosen her not because she was the most experienced, but because she could speak to anyone about anything, make them listen. She would need that ability today. The council chamber was vast. It could hold representatives from 1,000 species, though usually only a few hundred attended any given session. Today, every seat was full. Every species that had any influence in the galaxy had sent someone to watch this moment. Jisoo walked to the center of the chamber, where a small platform waited for speakers. She looked up at the assembled aliens, creatures of every shape and color. Beings who had ruled the stars when humanity was still learning to make fire, and she was not afraid. Distinguished representatives, she began, her voice calm and clear. I am Jisoo, Ambassador of the United Earth Federation. I come before you today with a simple request. Humanity seeks membership in this council. A murmur went through the chamber. Ambassador Velo rose from his seat, his gray face twisted with disapproval. "This is highly irregular," he said loudly. "Your species has not completed the standard evaluation process. You have not proven your ability to contribute to galactic society." "You have not. We completed it on the battlefield," Jisoo interrupted calmly. "We proved our capability when we defeated a force that outnumbered us 60-1. We proved our unity when every nation on Earth worked together for the first time in history. We proved our resolve when our soldiers gave their lives for people they would never meet." Paused and looked directly at Velo. "We proved our mercy when we chose not to exterminate. The Keth. We could have burned their world to ash. We could have ended their species forever. Every officer in our fleet wanted to, but we chose to show restraint because we are not murderers. We are protectors." Velo opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For once in his long career, he had nothing to say. Representative Thal of the Orin Collective rose next. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber lights, and his voice was genuinely curious. "Ambassador Jisoo, I must ask, what do humans want? You have shown that you can conquer. You have shown that you can destroy. But what do you want to build?" Jisoo nodded. It was a fair question. "We want what we have always wanted," she replied. "A chance to live. A chance to grow. A chance to raise our children under alien suns and know that they are safe." She looked around the chamber slowly. Colony Area 6 was destroyed because this council decided that human lives did not matter. 40,000 people died because no one was willing to protect them. Her voice hardened slightly. "We are here to ensure that never happens again. Not to humans. Not to any species. We are here to say that the strong do not have the right to prey on the weak. We are here to build something better than what we found." The chamber was silent for a long moment, then observer Mira rose from her seat. She was ancient, older than most civilizations in the room, and when she spoke, everyone listened. "Well, I've watched this galaxy for a very long time," she said slowly. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species that conquered everything destroy themselves. I have seen species that seemed weak become the foundation of lasting peace." She turned to look at Jisoo with her crystalline eyes. "The humans are different from anything I have seen before. They are violent, yes. They are aggressive, yes. But they are also kind. They are also merciful. They contain contradictions that should not be possible. Capacity for terrible destruction and the choice to show mercy even when destruction is deserved." She paused. "I believe they have earned their place here. I vote yes." The vote that followed was not close. One by one, the representatives voted in favor of humanity's membership. Even Velo, in the end, raised his hand, though his face showed that he did it only because he saw no other option. When the final count was announced, Jisoo allowed herself a small smile. Then she walked to the seat that had been prepared for Earth's representative, a seat equal to all the others. In the chamber, Anne sat down. She had done what she came to do. After the session ended, Myra approached Jisoo privately. The ancient being moved slowly, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "You know," Myra said quietly, "we watched your species for millennia. We sent observers to your planet. We've studied your wars and your art and your science. We thought we understood you." Jisoo raised an eyebrow. "And now?" Myra's crystalline face formed something like a smile. "Now I understand that we were watching wolves sleeping. We saw the violence and thought it was all you were. We did not see the love behind it, the fierce protection of family and tribe that drove every conflict." She paused. "And then someone was foolish enough to wake you up." Jisoo was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "We do not want to be feared," she said finally. "We want to be respected. There is a difference, is there?" Mira asked gently. "Yes." Jisoo met the ancient being's gaze without flinching. "Fear comes from not understanding. Respect comes from seeing clearly. We want the galaxy to see us clearly, both our strength and our kindness, both our fury and our mercy. We are not monsters. We are not angels. We are simply human." Mira nodded slowly. "And perhaps the galaxy will learn something from you after all." 10 years later, a young Keth historian named Talvo published a book about the human Keth War. It became required reading at the Council Academy. Studied by young diplomats and military officers from 100 species, the final passage of the book was quoted for centuries afterward, "The great mistake of my people." And indeed, of the entire council was the assumption that humanity's violence was their weakness. We thought their aggression made them primitive. We thought their short lives made them desperate. We thought their internal conflicts made them fragile. We were fools. Their violence is not weakness. It is capability held in check. Their short lives do not breed desperation. They breed urgency and passion. Their conflicts do not make them fragile. They make them adaptable, for they have spent their entire history practicing war against the most dangerous opponent in the galaxy, each other. The humans have a saying, "Do not mistake my kindness for weakness." My people learned what that meant. I pray the rest of the galaxy never has to. And in the centuries that followed, as humanity spread across the stars and took their place among the great civilizations, that prayer was mostly answered. Not because humanity had changed, but because the galaxy had finally learned to respect the wolves among them. The Council could only watch as humans built their empire of stars. But this time, they watched with wonder instead of contempt.